Hey.
Hello. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay.
Are you like on the other end of your room?
Chill.
Yeah, I was just grabbing a drink. Sorry.
Wow, empty
I'm back.
chairing me.
Nice.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I know.
Jesus.
Okay, so there was. Well, I just want to pull up the tweets because I remember I sent you a screenshot when I was first messaging you to talk.
Hmm?
Okay. So the other day I messaged you. I sent you some screenshots of some tweets while I was at the pub. Seething about politics on my phone, and I saw you say the slightest.
The idea of kuihman as a person sitting at a pub on his phone. Oh my god, like he goes to a bar and he's on his phone, like scrolling through Twitter while drunk is the funniest shit.
Sympathy
I'm
for
sorry.
Israel
I'm
is
sorry.
not the
I'm sorry.
same
Not
as
funny.
supporting the complete ethnic cleansing of Palestine. But I'll put that aside. So I assume someone's being disingenuous with you beforehand.
Hmm?
You say, yes, if you follow the logic above, you'd have to admit that you believe the majority of Jews on Earth are as good as neo-Nazis. No. This person says, if the majority of Jews favored killing and displacing all the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, and I said that is a fascist position, you're saying that would make me anti-Semitic. Just clarifying. And you said, might have to think more about it, but you probably would be. If the majority of Jews seriously wanted to kill and displace 5 million people, it would be justified to think there's something wrong with them. Unless you think you can hate most Jews without being a Jew hater, lol.
Yeah.
So I feel like saying that if a majority of a group believes something,
Yeah.
and you believe, in your opinion, is that belief is like abhorrent, despicable, beyond the pale,
Okay.
Nazi adjacent or Nazi leaning, whatever you want to call it. If you believe that about that position, then you are, in some essence, bigoted against that group that hold that position.
Okay.
Is that what your position is?
So I can probably fast forward like 2 or 3 steps to this conversation if you want. So, if the majority of Jews actually wanted to just kill like 5 million fucking Arabs, would that make them? Would it make you anti-Semitic to not like that, to think like you've got a really big issue with most Jews? Like you think most Jews are basically on the same level as Nazis? And then I would say, well, your behavior might be kind of like indistinguishable from that of someone who's bigoted against Jews, because you'd be discriminating against them. You would probably be like red flagging every other fucking Jew that you see, because it's a majority of them. You'd also be having to wonder, why is the majority of this particular ethno-religious group like wanting to just murder 5 million people? That's kind of crazy. Then the counter to that would be, well, you're not really hating them for their immutable characteristics. You're hating them for something that is just a political opinion that they hold, but they don't necessarily have to hold. And then I would respond to that by saying, that's probably fair.
I mean, isn't that kind of like a statistic kind of thing, right? Because oh god, what is it called? Statistical racism, I guess. Because if you were to say like, oh yeah, I'm afraid of seeing black people in real life because black people are, black people crime statistics or something, right? Then, like, in that case, why wouldn't it apply to Jews, right? Even if a majority of Jews held a position about supporting Israel or something, and then you applied it to all the Jews, that is kind of discrimination, I guess, but I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, you can state a statistical fact and it could just be true, and that's not something that is racist. But if you apply that to every single Jew that you come across, then yeah, that's going to come across as racist, obviously. Yes.
It's not the same as hating them because of an immutable characteristic. But then it circles back to the actual conversation, which is, if a slight sympathy for Israel makes you a neo-Nazi, that then the question would be that if the majority of Jews have a slight sympathy for Israel, which I think they do, I think it's quite clear,
They do.
then is it anti-Semitic to call that neo-Nazism? And I would say that that is, because there is something about the general experience of most Jews that would make them lean towards Zionism.
I don't have the rest of this exchange in front of me right now, so just trying to get some context on the rest of what you're saying here. Is roughly the conversation happening here? Is it about that polling that is used to say basically 90% of Jews are Zionists?
It's not 90, it's like 70 something in diaspora.
I hear it get quoted as 90 by like a bunch of people, but yeah, basically, there's this polling that says that most Jews doesn't say most Jews are Zionist. It says like it's about positive feelings towards Israel or something, and people take that to mean most Jews are Zionists, right?
Depends on which poll you look for, because like for American polls, there are polls that will just say like most Jews believe that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state, so that would be Zionist. Or I think in the UK,
Sure,
it's
but
like 70% say they're
Let me
Zionist.
see a
Yeah.
cryonics.
So what definition of Zionism do you use?
That Israel has yeah, go on.
I thought so. Your position is Zionism is just Israel has a right to exist, not that there has to be an expansionist element to Zionism.
No, it's Zionism is Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. You can be a Zionist who opposes the settlements in the West Bank. You can be a Zionist who supports them. Yeah.
So you don't think that Zionism? Okay, so if you believe, let's say this, would you say this is a Zionist position that, in theory, it should be a one state, one person, one vote, but that's not possible right now? Is that considered a Zionist position to you?
That's very difficult because it would have to be.
But I feel like that's where like most people land.
I feel like trying to struggle whether or not like there is whether or not a position is Zionist or not is kind of a useless thing, a useless thing to take, right? Because now it just sounds like, I feel like when you label things as Zionism, you're taking a lot of nuance out of whatever issue that somebody might be discussing. And when you're talking about something specifically like democracy in Israel, if Palestinians were in Israel or something, right? I feel like just to label what like even to question whether or not that position or asking that question is Zionist or not, kind of greatly simplifies any potential in-depth discussion that you could have about the topic. Yeah, that's just my position on
most even like not most, I wouldn't say, but a lot of Western Jews
I guess what I should say is that it's an unproductive conversation.
are going to land in that position where they understand the legitimate security fears that Israel has in the current situation, but don't believe in an ethno-state. And so what I feel like there's a game being played by almost both sides in different directions, where everyone's trying to conflate Jew with Zionist, and the basis that's being used, sort of, it feels like from you guys' direction, is well, most Jews have a positive sentiment towards Israel. So if you say that thinking Israel should be an ethno-state is a Nazi position, then you hate Jews. It feels like is what's basically going on.
Well, where's this? Are you suggesting there's a majority of Western Jews who believe in a one person, one vote, one state solution?
No, I'm not suggesting. I don't know whether there's a majority. I'm saying a lot of people, I think, land on that position. A lot of those people who say, I have a positive feeling towards Israel, probably don't principally believe in the idea of ethno-states. Especially not more secular liberal Jews, I'm imagining.
I think my understanding of like most Western Jews as well is like when they say Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state, that the Jewish state implies that it's majority Jewish. Yeah, or at least Israel's because Israel's right to exist would imply
polling
that
is there? So what's the polling? How many Jews agree with the idea that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state? What's the polling on that?
I can find my little thread on it for you.
Because the one that I always see cited is the one where it's just positive feelings towards Israel, and people use that to completely astroturf and act like every Jew is a Zionist.
Okay. This might take me a minute to find it because it's on a Twitter thread, so I don't know how to search my own fucking tweets. Is this French Jews I was talking about? French.
It's with this
Jews, Zionism.
Petri Club person. That helps.
Who's that?
I'm saying what the @ you're replying to in the screenshot is.
Oh no, it's not that. This is a really old thread that I did about this.
Okay.
Was it a year ago I did this? What's this? So it was around April 2024. Okay, this is gonna take me fucking ages. Maybe find the recent Pew one on Israel. That might be a start for America. Pew Research. American Jews. Israel. Okay, so this is Pew in April 2024. There's probably some inferences we can make here, but if you disagree with any of them, you can. I'll maybe send this to you. This is mostly about the war,
Yep.
but I think even if you look at where they're leaning just in terms of the war, I think it's probably safe to infer that most of these people are not going to be like one-stayers. Like so when it comes to even just like sympathy for the Israeli government, you get like 54% with a favorable view of this government, like which is probably one of the most right-wing governments or the most right-wing government Israel's ever had.
Yeah. So I mean, or yeah. So I'm just saying, even under this, it's like, yeah, I'll agree. I totally agree that like a significant, probably at least half of Jews would be considered Zionists under the definition we're using right now. If you're assuming that, you know, what does it say? 62% of Jewish adults in the US see the way Israel is carrying out its response to Hamas as acceptable. If you're polling acceptable.
Hello, Melvin.
In April. Oh, this is April 2024.
Just about a year ago.
Oh, that's a little, yeah, that's a little bit different. I don't know. I don't know if I draw such a strong inference on that. I thought this was like super recent. I don't know. I feel like there's plenty of people who could have seen it as acceptable in April 2024 who aren't principally ethno-state supporters.
When you say ethno-state though, like that's the thing I don't get, is because if we're talking about most Jews in America or even in France, Britain, etc., saying that they have favorable views towards the state of Israel and that they feel like it's an important part of their Jewish identity, like Israel implies Jewish state. Like that's very implied. It's going to be a Jewish majority state, because the only Israel that's not a Jewish majority state is one that somehow has been fucking couped by a minority, or it's one that's dissolved itself and turned into a single one state with Palestine. So I think I think Israel is kind of quite implied to be a majority Jewish state.
Yeah, but when you just say positive feelings towards Israel, this is such a vacuous poll question. That's not saying. Yeah, there's so many different things that are connected to that, where someone's got family members that are from Israel, or they've been to Israel at some point in their life, or they've they see Israel as like, I don't like what they do. I wish it could be one person, one vote, but I see Israel as like, I like the fact that the Jews have the ability to go to a state.
I feel like just for the sake of like simply like making things simpler, I think you can just say to a lefty specifically, anybody who is even remotely sympathetic to Israel is Zionist. Because, for example, if somebody is sympathetic to the Nazi party, would you not say that that person is no better than a Nazi? Right? Like, I feel like they would say that. This is not according to my logic, this is according to their logic, right? If there are 10 people at the table and 9 of them are Nazis, wouldn't the 10th person be a Nazi? According to them, according to leftist logic? If that's the case, then even having remotely sympathetic views of Israel, to them at the very least, would make them a Zionist. If all of these Jews, if the vast majority of Jews even had one sympathetic thought for Israel, or expressed that in some form or some way, would it not be the case that all Jews are therefore Zionist? I don't know, dude. Because I feel like there isn't a single Jew out there who has never felt at least like 1 second or a few seconds of sympathy for Israel.
That isn't in the West, where we've been fucking holocausted before. There's lots of reasons that people can have positive feelings towards Israel that don't necessarily mean I think this country should be an ethno-state into perpetuity, right? I think if the idea of believing in ethno-states, fundamentally, this is a fascist belief, right?
What? Believing in an ethnic majority as a
believing in
historically persecuted minority is a fascist belief.
Enforced ethnic majority, enforced ethnic lines to maintain the presence of an ethnicity and supremacy.
I would probably say it is fascist, but it's an acceptable form of fascism, probably. Like if you really force me to talk about this, like I would say it is fascism, but it is a necessary evil, right? I think this would be the logical step. Otherwise, you're like arguing about whether or not otherwise you'll be arguing about whether or not it is fascist or not to have an ethno-state, which is retarded, right? If you're trying to enforce an ethno-state that is inherently fascistic, but I guess it's like, but the problem is that people always fucking BS. People always BS about like about the definition itself, right? I have a question. Why did you delete your video that was called Asmongold is unironically bad faith? It's the video where you said the N-word, but you're sitting here like you care for black people. I probably deleted it because it had low views or something, or it was demonetized by YouTube. Typically, I remove a lot of videos. I prune my channel from time to time if something is low views, so it doesn't affect me in the algorithm. Or if, because I upload videos a lot. Like, I don't just upload videos sparsely to the point where I want to keep every single video up. I typically move videos to the second channel. Is the video when you said the N-word, but you sitting here talking like you care for black people? I do care about black people. But I also believe that, you know, saying the N-word doesn't make you inherently racist. Because everybody says the N-word with a soft A. Like, who cares? Who cares about that? Literally, who cares? Nobody cares. Israel, at least, is supposed to be a democracy. It's not like they're an ethno-nationalistic evil thing in the way leftists are describing it as. Yeah, like, I will say the idea of an ethno-state is fascistic. Absolutely. However, I would then argue and say that at least they have a democracy. You have a democracy in an ethno-state. Like, that's better than nothing, dude. And you have a lot of ethno-states out there in the world. It's just that we just hyper-focus so much on Israel. Japan is an ethno-state that Hassan himself had vacation to. So, I mean, is he a hypocrite for doing that? I don't know.
Different ethnicity in an area. That's like a fascist.
Okay, so I'll cut out a few.
But are you sitting here getting mad at white people when they do it? Yeah, because context matters, right? Like, if I call somebody the N-word, if I say, hey, what's up, my ninja, right? Who cares, right? Like literally, who cares? However, if I kept on repeatedly calling somebody ninja, 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 as a racist connotation, and I say, what's up, my ninja, it's obviously going to sound different, right? Context matters in every single word or every single word that's used, right? Yeah.
Those words, because it really just means to preserve an ethnic majority, right? That's what it actually means. Not like it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, but that maintains the ethnic supremacy. Like if you've got anytime where you're going to be any rules that you craft to maintain ethnic majority there are going to have a knock-on of ethnic supremacy. No.
If you mean supremacy in the sense that like you probably like the main ethnic group would have like slight, like more economic advantages and things like that. But when people say supremacy, I feel like they're always invoking things like fucking Jim Crow and shit like that, which doesn't necessarily.
Okay, well, I'm not invoking that. I'm not like a retard lefty, so I'm not invoking that. I'm using very, clinical supremacy that is in one ethnicity will be raised up above the others in that society.
So the question is, what about if it's like inherently fascistic to want to maintain an ethnic majority in a particular area? Right?
Yes. Say yes.
Yeah. To enforce that, yeah.
Does it matter why they want it?
Yeah, I think it does to some extent. That's why I say.
By the way, again, okay, I don't know why Lonerbox is skirting around this. It's just a really easy bullet to bite down, right? You are a bunch of Jews who are surrounded by a bunch of people who hate Jews, who are also, in of itself, kind of like much more fascistic, right? Would it not be justified to also have like a little fascist state of your own? I think that's okay, right?
I understand. Like, I wouldn't necessarily call someone fascist for this position, right? Where someone said.
But when most white people say the N-word in the modern day, they mean it in the same context as how black people use it, but you're sitting here calling people racist for having a different view for you. I'm calling people racist because they have, they completely, throw away due process for people who are, just basically a different color than them, or they come from a different background. Of course, that's racist. But, that is much more racist than, let's just say, if I ever say, what's up, my nigga, right? Obviously, it's, the context there is going to be different, right? Think about it.
I don't believe that it's possible to have a one state, one vote situation right now. I think that'll be a horrible safety situation for both people, for both peoples. So I don't think that's possible right now. But in theory, I principally believe in one state, one person, one vote, right?
Yeah.
That would be totally reasonable. That's like, yeah, you can't have these people living together right now, but there's no principal commitment to the maintenance of an ethnic majority.
I'm black. I gave you the N-word pass. Thank you. I even said it correctly. Okay, I didn't say it in a white-sounding way. So yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, that's my position as well. Like, it shouldn't be for its own sake.
Sure. But
yeah.
if you like, let's say, so if most Jews believed, no, we just want this to be for the Jews, and you said, okay, that's fascist. Even if most Jews believe that, would that make you anti-Semitic if you took that position towards them?
If someone said that they wanted Israel to remain like a Jewish majority state, like has a right to exist as a Jewish majority state, and I said that's fascist, then yeah, then I would say that that's like, I don't know, it's not inherently anti-Semitic. I guess it depends on like how much you've kind of ignored to why you say it. But yeah, I think there is to some degree to have that like anti-Zionist position of this idea that like it's like you can only want a Jewish majority state in that region because you're a fascist. If that's your only explanation for it, then yeah, that probably would be anti-Semitic. Yeah, because you have to deny a lot of Jewish history to believe that. Yeah.
So you're saying that, so let's say someone in England says, I think England should be English majority and we should make sure it's always English majority.
What pass can I give you if I'm Mexican? You can say, just say, I don't know, like you can say, oh, you give me the bean pass, okay? I can call people beans. I don't fucking know, dude. There's not much there. Yeah.
And I don't mean English like, you know, civic English. I mean English like ethnic English. We should always be English.
Ethnic English.
And I call them a fascist. Would I be Anglophobic?
No. Because
okay, well, why are the rules different for the Jews versus the whites?
Because the Jews have had different rules for
Wait, what?
as long as they've existed.
Wait,
they've always been.
What are you talking about right now?
They've always been persecuted. They've always been treated. Yeah. What?
I think a lot of people are sick of the rules being different for Jews. I was joking.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, but that's the thing. Like people complain about whatever they call like Jewish exceptionalism, or whatever. Yeah, motherfucker. If a group is treated exceptionally, like by the entire world, whether it's Muslim, Christian,
I do think this is like retarded thinking. I think this sort of thinking does just fuel anti-Semitism more than anything.
Yeah, because wait, what argument?
Yeah, the argument you're making right now. You're making like you're saying, well, Jews have been treated.
Foodshops, do you hate people on the right? Yeah, I would say so. I have a great deep dislike for them. If you say like, oh, saying the word hate is too strong of a word, like I would definitely say like, oh, a deep dislike is probably a better word for it.
Different. Yeah. So they get special rules now. Sorry guys, we're letting the Jews do extra now.
What special rules?
Even these tiny dinosaurs are.
You're saying that ethno-states are fine when they're for Jews, basically, right?
Low, yeah, sure.
The point.
You realize I would say the same for Palestinians as well, right? Like if Palestinians got a state, I would be very fucking skeptical of someone who was saying that, yeah, they should just have open borders and allow any like migration group to come in and like out and write out their majority as well. Like a Palestinian state, why is it called a Palestinian state? Because it'd be majority Palestinian Arabs.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Sorry.
Is that fascist?
Well, no, but the point is that you have a principled commitment to the maintenance of the ethnicity, right? Assumedly, the idea of starting a Palestinian state isn't this place is going to be into perpetuity, majority Palestinian.
How about the left? I hate some parts of the left. Yeah.
Enshrined in law, majority Palestinian. It's for the Palestinians forever. This is now their homeland that no one else that you can't immigrate to if you're going to fuck up the ethnic makeup. You can't it's that's not the idea that I think anyone's saying when they say they want a Palestinian state. I think they're saying that the people there right now should have the ability to start a sovereign nation, to have a sovereign nation that is recognized under international law. It's not saying they should get an ethno state forever.
Okay, we're not talking about forever. Okay, let's say Israel
we're not talking about. Okay, so maybe I've missed a point I meant to make here. I'm sort of trying to shave off I think there's safety concerns right now, so I don't think there should be one nation, one person, one vote, right? I'm shaving off that position, and the person we're talking about who is advocating for an ethno-state believes in an ethno-state for that people, okay? Not just for some limit.
How much right do you hate? Wait, why are you asking so many questions? Does it matter? I feel how many more questions are you gonna ask me? Jesus Christ, dude. Okay, this is gonna be the last question. No more questions after this. How much of the right do you hate? Like almost all of it. I think that are like anti-science, anti-logic, and just generally pretty fascist or fascistic leaning. Yeah.
Limited time safety issue,
Mhm.
but as a principle, they believe in the ethno-state.
Well, yeah, having it for its own sake when there's literally no other reason. If you live in a world where that level of discrimination and fear and persecution doesn't exist, then yeah, of course it doesn't make sense. That's why it doesn't make sense for the English. But obviously for the Jews, especially in the Middle East, that we're not in that world. We're not going to be in that world for probably most of our lifetimes
Okay,
at least.
so it is, under your perspective, totally fine if someone says, I'm a Jew, I believe in the right for Jews to have their homeland in Israel. I think Israel should be for the Jews, majority Jews. And no, that's not because I'm worried about safety right now. I am worried about safety right now, but also I just think it should be for the Jews forever.
Okay,
You
and
would
then
say,
and then obviously
and I
if
said,
I
you're
yeah
a
then
fascist, would that be fine?
yeah, that's fine to call them fascists for that. Yeah, if it's
Okay,
for its own
okay,
sake, then
because
yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people are coming at this from. I feel like that there's something that's happening is, and I said essentially the same thing to you before, is people hear, say, Hassan or someone talk about something like this, and then they get the response from the more lib side, and the more lib side is skipping 50 steps where it's like, well, well, I've spoken to lefties before. They actually think that it's fascist just to think that Israel should be allowed to maintain its borders for now and maintain the majority right now. They think that's fascist. So I'm assuming that when someone says it's fascist for Jews to want an ethno-state, what they actually mean is a tool and not.
I just don't get why, like, oh, it's fascistic or not is even a relevant question. Like, technically, there's lots of things that is like just straight up, I don't know, just up for grabs, right? Like, is what Israel doing ethnic cleansing? Is it not ethnic cleansing? Is it not ethnic cleansing, or is it ethnic cleansing for them to be telling a bunch of Gazans at the beginning of the war to move like westward? Is it westward or southward or something? Like they just told a bunch of people to move like in one direction, right? Like, and you're telling people to get out of a piece of land, and if you don't let them come back, then obviously, it should be considered ethnic cleansing. But to me, that's such a useless question because I feel like so many things can be construed as technically war crimes, but it's like, is that even like? I feel like that's kind of like a necessity, right? If before you bomb a region, shouldn't you be telling a bunch of people to move, right? Yeah, I don't know. There's just no winning.
The idea that a principled ethno-state should be maintained into perpetuity as a homeland for the Jews. So it's like there's like 20 steps between the points where we're at, where basically in your head you've already narrowed down this statement about, or like you've excluded other motivations for this statement that I think a lot of people actually
more
do hold.
questions?
That is
True.
their actual motivation for calling these things fascist.
Yeah, no,
They
so
do
I
see-
do consider a lot of different motivations. That's why that's why I don't say, oh, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, because there are a million reasons you can be an anti-Zionist that aren't anti-Semitic. That's the reason when it comes to someone like Hassan, I held off on, I used to fight people on my own server who called him anti-Semitic because I just didn't buy that conclusion. As the more I watch of him and the more I see just how flagrantly he denies anti-Semitism and at least concerns about demographics
Yeah,
that
that's
actually are
nuts.
very valid right now for Jews in the Middle East, and the amount of denial that he does on Jewish history and like how like Middle Eastern Jews ended up in Israel, then from after hearing like where he's coming from with that and like that whole crowd, like because this crowd is not saying keep your ethnic majority now until it's safe to get rid of it. They want Israel destroyed like fucking yesterday. So
Right.
Well,
that's why I think it's
understand that,
anti-Semitic.
but then okay. So you wait. So okay. So you think it's anti-Semitic to believe one person, one vote now?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So you think that is an anti-Semitic belief, not just anti-Semitic in practice, but anti-Semitic in motivation.
I don't think it has to be in motivation. Mostly people have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
But you
so,
think, but you
yeah.
think because that would lead to the death of Jews in Israel, that's anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Um,
It would be like here's the counter is like if I let's say that Israel succeeds in their big project of like they want every Jew to return to the homeland, right? So it's like you've actually got like 16 million fucking Jews living from the river to the sea, and then they say, okay, well since now we're basically like 2/3 or 3/4 of the population.
I might play a little bit of Expedition 33 on stream after all this is done. So, look forward to that.
Even with the West Bank and Gaza, and they say,
It's a
all right,
base
now
game.
we'll do one state solution. Let's go let's go one person, one vote. Okay, because it's 25% Palestinian. What are they going to do anyway? Israel already kind of has that, and then Palestinians say, "Wait, fuck off! Like we don't want to
Seems so
just have like
addictive. I believe you.
be brought into this democracy with the country that has treated us like shit for the last 75 years, just so that we can exist as a minority and not like live the way
Are
that
you
we want
copying
to
me?
in our own different society." And they would actually rather have a two-state. I would not call them fascist for wanting that. I think they'd be very within their rights to oppose that. Do you?
Yeah, well, no. So obviously, fascist. The part that I'm saying is fascist is the maintenance of the ethnic majority. But I think ultimately that there's some calculation you have to do with the creation of the actual creation of a nation, where it's like that there's some balance between the sovereignty of the people that are there, the international law that already exists, but and like some moral consideration about like whether this should be recognized. And yeah, if there's like a huge population in a landmass that have a radically different way of wanting to live their life to the other people, then yeah, you would probably want them to have their own sovereignty to be able to distinguish themselves and not, kill each other basically.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that, and I agree with the idea of, so you don't have to convince
Expedition
me
33.
on like.
Listen, I just bought Expedition 33 because I saw Hot Woman. Okay, that's it.
Israel probably needs to exist right now. You don't need to convince me on that. I'm not like against that or calling that fascist. But my issue is calling the people who think it should be one nation, one vote, person, one vote, calling those people fascist. The people that think it should be like that right now, calling those people anti-Semitic rather. I don't think that's necessarily anti-Semitic. I don't think usually we would look at, say, the outcomes for a.
I understand what Kuihman is saying. Like he's saying that like, oh god, he's saying like if you oppose fascism in all kinds, if you oppose fascism in all forms of it, then therefore you are like, I don't know, you are how do you say, like you're just trying to be anti-fascist, right? Because if Israel exhibits a form of fascism, shouldn't you just be anti-fascism? Shouldn't you just be automatically conceding to the fact that you're anti-Israel because it is a form of fascism? But at the same time, again, it kind of ignores the nuances of like the fact of why sometimes fascism is needed, right? Sometimes fascistic. For example, there are fascistic policies, right? Deporting people is fascistic, kind of, right? Locking people in the prison is fascistic. I don't know. There's just lots of reasons that fascism exists, and I feel like not all forms of fascism is technically bad, or not all forms of authoritarianism is technically bad. And also, I don't even know if it fits the definition of fascism in the first place, because fascism always has to preclude some kind of anti-Semitic tendency. So I don't fucking know, dude. There's a girl at the start with a hat like yours. My favorite is Leon. My favorite is male, I think, because she's hot. That's why.
Country that is sort of representative of the people, and say that if you have a policy position that would be bad for that country but isn't motivated by wanting bad on that country, you are then
Isn't she like 16?
somehow bigoted against the people that are represented by that country.
Okay.
I don't see. We don't usually do that. I don't think that's a way we look at bigotry normally.
Yeah, which is why, like, even though so let's say I have someone come over and they say that they want the one person, one vote thing, I'm probably not going to call them anti-Semitic. I'm probably not even going to tell them I think this would lead to anti-Semitic outcomes, even though I do. I'd probably just engage with them on why they think that and if they've considered this or that or this or that. Yeah, that's generally why with the anti-Semitic thing, I have a quite high threshold for throwing that accusation out. So.
Oh, what the fuck? She is 16. Oh well.
Sure, but it seemed like you were saying that position is anti-Semitic, one person, one vote.
If you want it to happen right now, it would yield anti-Semitic outcomes. Yeah.
Respect that, I don't
Sure,
so
but I wouldn't
it's
say
kind
that
of
makes
it does
the
make it.
position- I wouldn't. We wouldn't say. I don't think we would say that for pretty much anything else, right? If someone said, like, what's a good example here? If someone in the UK said, "Oh, I think we should get rid of all the speech restrictions in the UK," you wouldn't then turn around to them and go, "Oh, so you're racist then?" Because that would lead to racist outcomes.
No, but I don't think that's quite the same because, well, first of all, with the speech restrictions, it's not quite as clear as just saying like, because one is like literally like abolishing a country.
What do I even do with dino
So-
coins, dude?
It's
Yeah,
I don't
but
think that's quite a good analogy, but I'm trying to think of a
why
better
about
one.
where's yeah? I mean, where's the disanalogous? But I just don't see that we would ever usually do this. The idea that you have a
Gustav is representation for old gamer man. At first, I was like, I felt very complaining about the fact that Gustav is old, but then I was like, you know what? I actually thought Gustav, and Mael was like dating at the beginning. Okay, look, don't blame me for like assuming that a 33-year-old and a 16-year-old are together. Okay, these Europeans are freaky.
a belief that things
He's the
in
oldest one I
this
know.
era or in this way should be fair among all people. That actually means you're a bigot.
Yeah, that's why I told you I don't think when people say they want a one-state solution with voting rights, I might think that it's like anti-Semitic as a position, but I don't think that the person saying
Well,
it
just
necessarily.
change
is
my
it.
language here slightly. Then we wouldn't say that's a bigoted position. We wouldn't say, "Oh, you want things to be fair among all people in this area." That's a bigoted position.
But when they say they want it now, right? That's when they say they want to go right
just a
now
drink.
into one person, one.
A martini, shaken, not stirred.
Only people with the most rizz and best talking points sign up for Aura/Foodshops. So you should all sign up.
True. Be like mundane, okay? If you have not signed up yet, remember the relations to sign up. If you really want to support me as a content creator and get awesome service, okay? Remember to sign up to Aura.com/Foodshops, okay? I'm sponsored by them. I get paid on a sign up basis. So please, 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 if you guys like what I do, if you guys watch me every day, it would be an awesome thing if you guys would sign up. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I hope when you play the same more stuff to relate to Braum. Yeah.
Vote.
I'll play it on stream
Yeah,
today. Okay?
I wouldn't usually say it's a bigoted position. Even if there's some potential negative outcome, I wouldn't state that's a bigoted position.
Do you think it would currently have like would you say they would have bigoted outcomes?
Bigoted outcomes. I mean, there would be like hate crimes and stuff like that, but I don't know what's bigoted outcomes mean. There would be more ethnic and religious violence as a result of that, probably. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But by the way, I just want to say, like, if it actually is the case that you're gonna have more ethnic and religious violence, just because you have an ethno-state, you just kind of have to take the cons as they go, right? Like, in my opinion, that is something that you can kind of accept, right? Maybe. In my humble opinion, if you feel as though it's not something you can accept, then argue for it, right? But at least we're now arguing on the facts rather than arguing based off of ideologies, which is fucking retarded, right? Argue on the facts and whether or not, one outcome is better than the other and which one is the most productive step, in my opinion. Yeah, like it is, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's